move on from wings and stuff to Brazil, actually. So this is the second race in the triple header. Max gets a $50,000 fine, or euro fine, sorry, for touching Lewis's rear wing.
I'd say this is the best weekend across the year.
Really? So this,
Like overall weekend, no race.
yeah, it was. Yeah, actually, to be fair, yeah, I say that.
Lewis getting, did he get pole?
So Lewis gets pole for the sprint race. Then they say, oh, actually, hold on a minute, your rear wing's a little bit dodgy. So not to bring the rear wings back up again, but
he was thrown to the back of the grid because he had an issue with his rear wing. He actually had an issue.
Yeah, he had an issue. It wasn't they were trying to finesse the rules. It was a genuine fault. There are 3 tests, one on the left, one on the middle, one on the right. They passed all of them but failed the one on the right by 0.2 millimeters or something. And they just disqualify him completely. Which is interesting because now
No, but that's alright. If you're breaking the rules,
the FIA are following the letter of the law. They did this with Hungary. We spoke about Hungary with Vettel. It's fair enough. It's just so, I don't know. They're like strict in some places. They're lean with others. They're trying to implement stuff. It's fair enough. Lewis gets sent to the back. He then in the sprint race goes from. Oh, actually, I'm pretty sure. So Bottas inherits the lead of the sprint.
Yeah, he takes pole position, or Lewis actually. Because whoever he wins, so Bottas goes on to win the sprint race.
Yes.
And he takes then pole position on Lewis.
Yeah.
But Lewis comes back to P5, I think, and then
Lewis comes back to P5, then gets an engine penalty, which is pre-planned.
Which pushes him down to P10, and then he has that crazy engine, and he just flies by everyone. And then we have that incident where Max pushes him out.
Yeah.
And I think if there was gravel there, Max is taking like no less than.
It's ridiculous. Literally everyone says that's a penalty, but for whatever reason, purely Canada 2019, they don't want to. It's awful.
It's that philosophy of let them race.
Any penalty on him and he would have finished third. Like that's less points. Bottas would have inherited second, but
he should have gotten 5 seconds. 5 seconds.
He should have done, definitely. Yeah. He wasn't even told to give the place back or anything. Obviously, no. Lewis was ahead. He just outbroke himself to defend.
But that's what Max always does. He essentially can't defend, so he'll just brake so late, push someone out of the track, and then that's it. They'll defend. This is what annoys me, is because what he's doing is. He's doing it based on their previous implementation of the rules. That's why I was surprised when they got like all upset about him doing that in Saudi, and then they're like, "Oh, you're getting a penalty." But he did exactly what he's been doing the whole year. Why you? He did it in Abu Dhabi, and then they're like, "No, Lewis keeps the front position. He shouldn't get." No, was it he? He did it. Did he get ahead?
Yeah, he got ahead of Lewis. What, you mean lap 1 of Abu Dhabi?
Yeah.
Yeah, he got ahead. He was trying to overtake him. He got ahead. Yeah.
And then Lewis cuts the corner.
Lewis cuts the corner.
And then he gets ahead. Okay.
But it was.
This is where the FIA really just they embarrass themselves. From here on, they just embarrass themselves
completely. So he's waving around in a.
He weaves a lot.
He's weaving as well, which is specifically. So I looked up the rules between these 2 episodes to confirm. There's a lot of stuff about entry to the corner, a lot of stuff about defending on the straights. Once you get to the apex and beyond that, there's like nothing. So you just have to go off what people have done in the past, which is interesting because they're not consistent. So you can't go off anything realistically.
It's because Michael Massey, has he been in driving before? This is the thing, like Charlie, I think, was a team principal. So he understood, what, how you should drive and all of that.
He's been a race director for something else, but I don't think he's ever been an actual driver himself.
Yeah. So he was a team principal. He was a team principal. Charlie Whiting. So he knew what he was talking about, but like this guy, like Michael Massey, has no clue what he's talking about. Bro.
So I mentioned last time, his Wikipedia page was just early life, 1 paragraph. And then the entire thing was just a mention of the controversy of Abu Dhabi. He's been Googled so many times now, they've decided to make his Wikipedia early life career notable controversies as race director. So before this was just Abu Dhabi, they've now added the Baku restart, the Belgium Grand Prix, which obviously didn't happen, The Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, which we'll talk about in a second, and then obviously the Abu Dhabi bit, which is still there. So, incredible stuff from Michael Massey. You do love to see it. That does move us on to Qatar, which the main conversation before the race was the drivers had a briefing about what's allowed and what's not allowed in racing. Leclerc obviously said that he would adjust his driving style to what was allowed and what wasn't. And they basically said different stewards would implement the rules in different ways. Which
yeah,
is
so
stupid.
basically what Charles said is like, if that's allowed for Max, then I'm doing it.
Yeah. And then they said, oh yeah, but it will be allowed sometimes, but it's sometimes not allowed. Lewis also said pretty much all the drivers were complaining. And obviously, Max didn't say anything because he knows what he has to do.
With Charlie Whiting, it was like, it was recorded, you'd see it, but there was transparency about what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. But this is just like, Michael Massey's just lost total control. Like, he actually has to be moved. And like, you need someone who knows the rules well, who's like been writing the rules, who's been a team principal or is like something like that, who knows how to deal with team principal. You need him to come in and, or like her obviously,
Ross
to come
Brawn,
in and like,
please, like Ross Brawn, that would be so nice. Oh, imagine, bro. Anyway, so Max and Bottas, but mainly Max, get penalties for double wave yellows. This was because Gasly was on for a decent lap and then ended up, actually he kept his position by having his tyre blow up and his and his front wing destroying itself. That brings out the yellow flags. That then means that he keeps his position of 4th at the time, but then he inherited P2 for the grid purely because of everyone else's penalties. This was also something that people complained about because, interestingly, they didn't know where people were starting. They didn't know so does this guy's penalty get applied before this one and who gets how much of a penalty. So Sainz and Bottas, I believe, Sainz started 5th, Bottas 6th, but they didn't know which way round they were going to be until they actually got on the grid and it was the wrong way or something. Because normally they publish the starting grid like 3 hours before the race. So more stuff from the FIA, you love to see it. Incredible. In general, the race was pretty boring.
Lewis led from the start. It's kind of like a classic Mercedes win from 20 seconds ahead of everyone.
Yeah, this was so Lewis just wins. Max makes back his 5th place grid penalty almost immediately and then comfortably finishes 2nd.
You have to say, like, Qatar was very easy to overtake. You're just overtaken to turn 1. That's it.
Yeah, this was exactly what people did.
It's done by like turn 2, turn 3, it's over.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, when people, DRS when it was introduced was so that people could regain the time they lost in the last corner and then make the move into turn 1. It wasn't so that they could just overtake in the straight.
Yeah,
Qatar,
now
it was just overtaking in the straight.
Yeah, the DRS was OP.
DRS was powerful. The straight on the last corner, the move was done into turn 1 realistically. So, yeah, not great stuff. Obviously, more talk about the FIA. In general, boring race. Yeah. Alonso does get his podium though.
He did like a 1-stop. But obviously, this is again like there were a few tire blowouts. Lando got another tire blowout. Lando was firmly inside the timing of the Pirelli, and then he had to stop. So this is what I was talking about in terms of Pirelli are very inconsistent with their tires, and they got like they got like C5 compounds, so like they're very tough ones, and then like
it was the hard tire blowing up the hardest one of the lot, the C5, and even then it was blowing up.
Yeah, that's when you know like something's wrong with Pirelli.
It's a rough one. We'll see. They've actually said for next year that most of the races are going to be a 1-stop or something. They're assuming.
Interesting.
So, in theory, that's all right. If the cars are good enough, if the aero of the cars is good enough, then great, because they're on track for longer. But if they're not, then 2 stops would be nice. Anyway.